Hello, everyone. Happy Football Friday. Just me today, so should be pretty short show. Not a ton of news, but we are starting our off-season recaps. We're going ends of the draft. So the Rams were the last team to have their first pick. That coming in the second round. And the Titans, obviously, number one overall. So those are the two teams we're going to start our offseason recaps with. Not really going to do records. We are going to give you the schedules since we got the schedule on Wednesday. Very exciting stuff. But let's delve into UFL Week 8 here. No breaking news. Actually, we are going to go breaking news. Just, I want to say about 2.5 hours ago, right when I was getting off work at 5, the 49ers have signed quarterback Brock Purdy to a 5-year, $265 million extension, $181 million guaranteed there. He now makes $53 million per season, and I believe it's around $165 for the first 3 years. But not the highest paid quarterback like some people thought, I guess. But I think he's around 7th. But he is in the $50 million quarterback club now, which is becoming less and less of a exclusive club. But yeah, there are quite a bit of guys. I think around a quarter of the league is in the 50 million club. So Brock Purdy joins that. I'm not sure, though. Not really sure that I would have paid him. Just because of the physical limitations and the fact that he's had the injuries, but also I don't know. It's really the physical thing for me. I don't know if they are good enough with Brock Purdy to get there. Even though they've been to the Super Bowl with him, been to the conference championship with him. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Take it as you will, but yeah, I don't know. It was a questionable decision for me. I do like that they didn't pay top market price for him, like making him the new highest paid quarterback. But it is a ton of money for a roster that needs a lot of help going forward. So we'll have to see how it works out. But yeah, definitely Brock Purdy there. Very, very rich man, especially based off his contract that he got as being Mr. Irrelevant. He made about $3 million, I think it was, being Mr. Irrelevant, and yeah, now he's making quite a bit more. if that's how you want to put it there. All right, let's go to UFL news here. Week 7 of Players of the Week. We had on offense, defenders, quarterback Jordan Ta'amu. Excellent performance, maybe his best of the season in their win over San Antonio. The defense was also DC defenders, defense tackle Joe Wallace, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Was a beast up front there for that Blake Williams defense. And special teams, Stallions kicker Harrison Mavis made all 3 of his field goal attempts in their comeback win there. Special player, big leg out of Missouri. The Michigan Panthers, big loss on their defense. They have placed linebacker Frank Ginda on IR. So definitely a big hole on the defensive side now. But they did sign some guys, Benning Patoa on the D-line, and R.J. Moten from Florida. He's a 25 undrafted guy that had a little bit of camp time with a couple teams. But Yeah, it's going to be Noah Dawkins going forward. He's going to have to step in, be the top tackler. Donovan Mutin has had a decent season as well. Both those guys have 20 tackles per me. The Gabriel Floyd now steps into a bigger role, as does James Neal. I'm sure they want to get RG Moten up to speed on the field as quick as they can. See what they got in the undrafted guy. But yeah, big loss for Michigan there. Playoff scenario. Speaking of Michigan, their game this week against the Roughnecks is a win and in scenario. They will clinch a spot in the USFL playoffs. If they beat the Houston Roughnecks, they will also eliminate Houston if that happens. Houston wins, they keep their playoff hopes alive, and Michigan potentially drops to the number 2 spot, which doesn't really matter anyways. Wild. Michigan, Detroit, Ford Field in Detroit, and Audi Field in DC for the DC Defenders. Both are unavailable for conference championship games. So we do not know what the plan is yet. What I would like to see is asking about the availability of some other stadiums, some other football stadiums around. Whether it's a college, or probably don't want to sell the pro stadiums. They're probably usually booked in the summer, but who knows? Look at FedEx Field. Look at some of the other colleges that are in the area. University of Maryland for DC. Georgetown also has a football team, not a big stadium, I'm sure, but don't really want to go all the way. It's pretty far to go down to Harrisonburg. JMU has a really solid stadium. And for Ford Field, the Michigan Panthers, if they were to win the USFL conference or be the host, I'm not sure where an alternate site would be. Not as familiar with the Michigan area and whatnot. I'm not sure how far East Lansing is, and Ann Arbor for Michigan and Michigan State. So, yeah, so I think there's definitely options. It's just seeing what it costs. Obviously, there's always costs to renting stadiums, and seeing if they can make it happen for the UFL. NFL news. Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson holding out. He said he will not play this year without a new contract, and did show up to not mandatory, voluntary OTAs mini camp there, and was not dressed obviously to go on the field. Just wanted to show up to make some statements, and that's what he did. So yeah, I still think they need to trade him. Probably because they can't. It would be very difficult to pay him, especially they're going to have other guys come up soon. I'm sure. So yeah, it's bad situation for Cincinnati, but to be honest, they're not the greatest run organization in terms of the personnel side. The coaching is great. Zach Taylor's a great coach, but the personnel decisions in Cincinnati have not been the greatest, other than the drafting of Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. Obviously, all the drafting has been pretty solid, but the free agent decisions, they don't really trade very often, so it wouldn't be surprised to not trade them. But yeah, we'll see. A couple of injury notes. Ravens losing safety Ardarius Washington for the season. He was going to play on the restricted free agent tender, looking for a big payday in 2026. Tore his Achilles, so he is likely done for the season. We're 7 months away from December. I don't know. Potentially playoffs. The Ravens are there. I'm not sure how deep they would have to go for him to return, but big time step up now for rookie safety Malachi Starks, their first round pick. they're going to need him for sure in that safety room. Good news for the Patriots. Defense tackle Christian Barmore has been cleared for football activity. Missed most of the 2024 season with blood clot issues in his legs, and now cleared for that activity. So that is a big time boost for Mike Vrabel's defense there. And that's one thing I had mentioned before talking about the Patriots. It's definitely a big time upgrade in the middle there, having Christian Barmore for sure. A couple of releases: the Jets remaking their special teams room, releasing punter Thomas Morstead and kicker Greg Zerline. Now they did sign undrafted punter Kai Kroger. He's a guy that has a pretty good leg and was one of the best punters in college football there, undrafted this year out of South Carolina, two-time first-team All-SEC. He was a first-team All-American in 22, second-team All-American this past season, and yeah, I mean, pretty solid player for sure. But yeah, Jets remaking their special teams room there. One other extension mentioned Brock Purdy. The Ravens, they signed running back Derrick Henry to a 2-year, $30 million extension, $25 million fully guaranteed for the 30-year-old running back. 31, I believe he's turning this year. And he will be able to finish his career in Baltimore. It sounds like he's going to play about 2 or 3 more years. So yeah, he will end his career as a Raven. And then free agent signings here. Just low-level 1-year deals. 49ers, they signed Jets kicker Greg Joseph to a 1-year deal. Titans, they signed Cowboys corner Amani Oruwariye. Patriots signed Bengals running back Travion Henderson, good third down back. Jags, they signed Bills tight end Quentin Morris, great tight end 3. And the Saints, interesting one, they signed undrafted free agent quarterback Hunter Deckers, formerly of Iowa State, and played in 2024 at Iowa Western. Why did he play at Iowa Western last year after playing his first 3 years at Iowa State? I think it was 3, it might have been 4. Well, because he was indicted by the NCAA on gambling charges there, and was essentially banned from the NCAA, Iowa Western, and NAIA school, I believe, or junior college. I'm not sure. I don't remember. NAIA, I believe, though. But yeah, great season there. 64.1% completion. School record 33,806 yards and 32 touchdowns. So Hunter Decker's a guy that has a ton of talent. It's just, that big blip on his record there, it definitely hurt him. Obviously undrafted for sure. Character concerns potentially. One visit to note: the Giants, they hosted Jags wide receiver Gabe Davis, so familiarity with Brian Daboll there from their time in Buffalo together. We'll see if New York ends up signing him, which would make a ton of sense. I still am not totally confident in the weapons that Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart have at their disposal, other than Malik Neighbors and my guy Theo Johnson out of Penn State. But yeah, not sure, not totally sold. They've always had a bunch of guys, but we'll see if Gabe Davis make the roster there. UFL pick standings. Danny's still rolling along, man. He's got we got 3 more weeks, 3 more regular season weeks, and then 2 playoff weeks. So about 15 more games left in the UFL season 2025. And Danny and I went 4-0 last week. We were both on the same 4 stuff. Christian and Jimmy going 3-1. They both lost their lone wolves. Arlington for Christian against Michigan. They lost a heartbreaker 1 point loss in a comeback bid by Bryce Perkins. And then Houston for Jimmy against Birmingham. That was also a comeback, and Birmingham won that one there. So 6 games back, Jimmy and I were trying. I believe Christian is pretty much eliminated, 13 games back. But Jimmy and I were still alive, technically. 15 games left. We'll see. Showboats at the Brahmas in about 15 minutes. Danny, rolling with the Showboats on the road in San Antonio. This is the toilet bowl, essentially, but it's not the last week of the season. This game was the hardest one for me to pick this week. But what I'm going on, I love quarterbacks, so that's essentially how I'm picking this game. If Dresser Wynn would have continued to start for Memphis, I would have been confident in picking Memphis. However, they've switched everything up. Troy Williams is now starting for the Memphis Showboats. They do get David Davis back, I think, in more of a capacity than they did have him last week. But Wes Hills is inactive for this game, so I don't like that part. Jalen Jackson active as RB2. Then Eric Prince is starting. And defensively, it's pretty much the same. Interesting thing, though, linebacker-wise, Steel Chambers is listed as a backup. They also switched around their secondary. Cam Dantzler, Eric Guerrer, and Mark Gilbert, the starting corners, over Kyrie Woods and Lance Boykin. So some changes on this Memphis team. I don't know if they'll make a difference, but I was not impressed with Troy Williams. EJ Perry is the backup, so I'm not impressed with either of those guys this season so far. So that's where I think it shifts me to San Antonio. Kevin Hogan has actually played pretty well in his 2 starts, despite losses. And I do like that Jared Garantano is the backup. I have more confidence in the quarterbacks for San Antonio than I do in Memphis. Also of note, this is a D. Anderson revenge game. He was traded to San Antonio for corner Darius Phillips, who Memphis has since cut. And D. Anderson is starting this week alongside Marquez Stevenson and Justin Smith. So Jacob Harris back for San Antonio and Jontre Kirkland. So I do like that. They also get Jaden Sheridan, who they claimed off of waivers from Michigan. He is the 3rd running back in this game. Also of note, Vitaly Gurman or Zuri Henry starts at right tackle in a new tackle there. Not much changing defensively. Story Jackson gets a start over Jordan Williams this week. Also, the secondary switched around for San Antonio as well. Corey Mayfield to the bench. Derek Langford into a starting corner position with Chris Steele on the opposite side. So I like the changes more in San Antonio than I do in Memphis. So give me San Antonio. It's going to be a close game. The total is 36.5. I don't know. I would lean under because I'm not confident in these offenses. However, San Antonio has the worst defense in the league in terms of points against. Now, they have done a better job of late, sort of. They haven't given up less than 18 in a game. So that's half of your total right there. 25.1 points per game is what they're giving up right now. Memphis is right in the middle of the league. They are 5th, 18.6 per game, and they have done a pretty good job. They've only given up 20 or more points in 3 out of their 7 games. So they have done a pretty solid job so far. Memphis also gives up a lot less yards, 269.3. That is good for also 5th in the league. San Antonio, like that's most yards allowed per game. They've only allowed less than 300 yards one time this season in 7 games. One thing you're probably not going to see a ton of in this game is sacks, because these two teams are the worst and second worst in terms of sacking the quarterback. Memphis at 8, San Antonio with 9. So it's not great. They're pretty solid. Turnovers also not going to be a ton probably unless the offense gives it to them, because Memphis worst in the league, just 2 interceptions. They have not recovered any fumbles this year on defense, and San Antonio is tied for second to last with Michigan, actually, surprisingly, with just 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. One thing though, Memphis has the kick 6 by Isaiah Henney short field goal return for a touchdown. San Antonio has a blocked field goal and a defensive touchdown. So just things to note there. But yeah, I like San Antonio, as does Jimmy and Christian. So hopefully we can get a game here in a close one on Danny. Bench the total 36.5. I like the under, lean under, 8 p.m. on Fox. Tomorrow, we have a doubleheader. It's really not a doubleheader. It is a simultaneous doubleheader. Panthers at the Roughnecks. Danny, going again here. Lone. Season is on the line, right, for the Houston Roughnecks here. Sure, I get it. But yeah, Michigan's the better team. This is the worst spread of the weekend, 6.5. I just don't see it with Houston. They had their chance last week to really make a push for the USFL playoffs, but doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I just think Bryce Perkins is up for MVP, and they have this team really rolling. Toa Taua in the run game, Nate McCrary, and defensively, they lost Frank Ginda. It's going to be a big loss, but I think Mike Nolan is good enough defensive coach that they can withstand that and continue to roll, especially against a Houston team that's not that great offensively, despite their really solid performance against Birmingham last week. Total is 43.5. I am going to lean on the under, 1 p.m. on Fox. Regional coverage, as is this one. Stallions at the Battlehawks. We are Splitsville. Danny and I, we are on the Stallions. Jimmy and Christian on the Battlehawks. I flipped from St. Louis to Birmingham. Why? Jamar Smith is starting in this game. Is that good or not? I don't know. But I just think there's something about Birmingham. They continue to win regardless of who's playing quarterback. St. Louis, on the other hand, I've been highly impressed with the development of Max Duggan the last 3 weeks. But I just think this Stallions team is too good. Regardless of injury, they continue to win. And I'm going to go with Skip Holtz over Anthony Becht in what should be a marvelous game at the Dome in St. Louis. Total's 39.5. I was wrong with going with the under for the Stallions game last week. So I'm going to go with the over and probably be wrong again this week. But yeah, I'm going with the over 39.5, 1 p.m. on Fox, the regional coverage. And Sunday, Renegades at the Defenders. The Renegades, Christian, he's doing his Texas thing. In Arlington for the second straight week, Lone Wolf in DC at Audi Field. Again, I don't see it. This is the same scenario as Michigan against Houston. It's a win and in for DC, lose and go home for Arlington, and DC's playing lights out right now. Jordan Ta'amu is on fire, leads the league in passing, has improved his accuracy the last 3 weeks. I think DC is the much better team, and Luis Perez, immobile in the pocket. DC is one of the best sacking teams in the league. Um, they are tied for the best sacking team with Arlington, 19. Um, but it's an even week, so unfortunately, if history continues to trend itself, DC won't have any sacks this week. Every even week, they have not had any sacks. 0, 0, 0, 2, 4, and 6. Weeks 1, 3, 5, and 7. 8, 3, 5, and 3. So they are streaky for sure on defense. But what they are not streaky is, and they really have to start getting these again, the turnovers. They did get 2 fumbles last week, but they did not. They have gone back-to-back games without interception. So 13 turnovers. They still lead the league by 1 over Arlington and St. Louis. So do have a defensive touchdown this year and a blocked field goal. Arlington has 2 defensive touchdowns this year. So I think it's going to be a pretty good game, though. DC comes out on the top. I would lean DC minus 2.5, but I'm not totally confident because of how many dogs have been covering this year. Total is 42.5. I'm going to go with the over. 12 p.m. ABC and ESPN Plus on Sunday. All right, off-season recap here. Titans in the off-season. Got quarterbacks Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle from San Francisco and the Giants. Tyler Lockett comes over from the Seahawks. Van Jefferson over from the Steelers. Tackles Oli Udoh from the Saints and Dan Moore Jr. from the Steelers. That was their big ticket, the most expensive free agent that they signed. Got guard Kevin Zeitler from the Lions. Re-signed center Corey Levine. D-tackle Draymond Jones from the Seahawks. They re-signed defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day. Edge rusher Lorenzo Carter from the Falcons. Linebacker Cody Barton from the Broncos. Re-signed linebacker Otis Reese. I mentioned they just signed corner Amani Oruwariye from the Cowboys. Safety Xavier Woods from the Panthers. Punter Donnie Hecker from the Panthers. Kicker Joey Sly from the Patriots. And they re-signed long snapper Morgan Cox. So special teams work for sure this offseason in Tennessee there. What did I like out of those? I'm not sure. Tyler Lockett, I think I really like that one, although he has declined a lot. Kevin Zeitler definitely, I think, was their best all-season addition, getting him to solidify the inside for the rookie quarterback and Cam Ward, which we'll talk about in a sec. I also did like the Draymond Jones signing, Lorenzo Carter as well. Cody Barton's a beast, tackling machine. And of course, Johnny Hecker is the one of the better punters in the league. Special teams fake ace there. Free agent losses. Quarterback Mason Rudolph went to the Steelers. Wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akina to the Dolphins. Offensive tackle Dylan Radins to the Saints. Offensive tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere to the 49ers. Edge rusher Harold Landry to the Patriots. Linebacker Kenneth Murray, they traded to the Cowboys. Linebacker Jerome Baker went to the Browns. Linebacker Luke Gifford to the 49ers. Linebacker Jack Gibbons to the Patriots. Corner Tito Biawuzie to the Ravens. And punter Ryan Stonehouse to the Dolphins. So, ton of losses. I'm not really sure. The Harold Landry thing, I didn't get that one. By far their best pass rusher, unless you want to put Jeffrey Simmons above him. But edge rushers interior. Jeffrey Simmons is upper echelon of the interior guys, but he's not an all-time talent like Aaron Donald. The linebacking loss is pretty big there. 4 linebackers lost from that room. I didn't like the Luke Gifford leaving. He didn't sign for that much, I'm sure, in San Francisco. Tackling machine for sure. But yeah, I do think I think it kind of evened out, but I would weigh their losses. They had more losses value-wise, I think, a lot more than they did add. Going into their draft, quarterback Cam Ward, number 1 overall from Miami. Second round edge rusher Oluwafemi Oladejo, UCLA, 52. At 82 in the third, they got safety Kevin Winston Jr. for Penn State. Three fourth rounders, wide receiver Samir DK from Florida at 103, tight end Gunnar Helm from Texas at 120, wide receiver Elike Manor from Stanford at 136. Fifth round, they got guard Jackson Slater from Sacramento State, number 167. Two six rounders, corner Marcus Harris from Cal, 183, and running back Kalel Mullings from Michigan, 188. No seventh round picks this year for Tennessee. So I liked their draft. I was left with, I think, a little bit here. They didn't draft a tackle. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on these tackles, man. Good luck with Dan Moore, and J.C. Latham's solid, but they need a tackle. I'm not trusting Dan Moore. Interior D line. Now they got Draymond Jones, so that was pretty solid. He's an edge rusher. They're listing him as on our lads. So interior D line, they really still do not have a ton of depth at all. Abdullah Anderson, I'm not sure who that is, but they did sign Keandre Coburn, James Lynch. Get some depth, but I think it's very thin there on the interior. So I was left with that one. Linebacker, again, re-signing Otis Reese, signing Cody Barton. They did draft Ced Gray and James Williams last year. They signed Curtis Jacobs from the Patriots and David Gabenda as an undrafted guy. So it's better, I think, than it was with the additions. And that's all I was left with needs-wise from the draft. I'll probably give the draft a well, they got a quarterback. Anytime you get a quarterback, it's definitely an upgrade. I love the Olu Oladejo selection as well. Kevin Winston's a steal in the third round. Like the weapons that they got in the fourth round as well. Jackson Slater's a good developmental pick in the fifth out of Sac State. I don't really like either of their sixth-round picks. So I'm going to go with a solid B+ here for Tennessee on the draft. Here's their schedule. Not very nice to start. At the Broncos versus the Rams versus the Colts, at the Texans. That's a tough 4-game stretch. At the Cardinals, at the Raiders, and they go 4 out of 5 on the road there, versus the Patriots, at the Colts versus the Chargers. Week 10 bye, not terrible. Home against the Texans, the Seahawks, and the Jags. So that's what you get when you go 3 on the road. You get 3 back on the home. At the Browns, at the 49ers, versus the Chiefs, versus the Saints, and at the Jags. So it's not the worst schedule. But it definitely is not the easiest for sure. When you look at it, the Titans rank, let's see here. They have one of the easier schedules, actually, based off 2024 records. They have the 4th easiest schedule in the league. I don't see that, though, per this schedule here. The Broncos is going to be a tough game. The Rams. The Texans are a wild card, as are the Colts. I'm not really sure what we're going to get from this whole division. So I'll put the Jags as a question mark as well. Maybe the Titans split. Maybe they win only 2. Maybe they win only 1. I don't know. I don't think they're going to go winless in the division this year. But it's always tough starting out, especially on the road with a rookie quarterback. So I would probably have them losing that Texans game. The Cardinals could be tough. The Raiders, who knows? I think they're upgraded with Geno Smith, Ashton Genty. Defensive concerns for me, though, still there. Patriots are going to get better. Are going to be better. I mentioned the Colts are a wild card. Whoever plays quarterback, I'm not sure. Chargers are a very good team. Seahawks, not sure what we're going to get with the Sam Darnold, Mike McDonald connection there. All new wide receivers essentially as well, other than JSN. The Browns, I think they got a good shot of beating them, depending on who's playing quarterback. 49ers, I think, are a big bounce back candidate this year. That's in Santa Clara, so I think the Titans probably lose that one. I think they're definitely going to lose the Chiefs. And the Saints, they could probably beat because Tyler Shuff is probably going to be. It's probably going to be a rookie quarterback matchup there. So again, we're not doing records, but that's kind of my analysis on what the Titans look like schedule wise. Despite fourth easiest schedule per 24 records, I'm telling you, I don't think it's going to be that easy. On to the Rams. Additions / re-signings. Quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, they re-signed running back Ronnie Rivers, signed wide receiver Devontae Adams from the Jets. They re-signed wide receiver Tutu Atwell, signed wide receiver Britton Covey from the Eagles, re-signed offensive tackle Alaric Jackson, signed guard Coleman Shelton from the Bears, defensive tackle Poona Ford from the Chargers, re-signed linebacker Troy Anderson. They got linebacker Nate Landman from the Falcons, and they re-signed corner Akello Witherspoon. So not a ton of roster turnover this offseason. They kept a lot of their lower level guys. Not a ton of money had to be spent to bring back any of their guys. They redid the contract for Matthew Stafford as well. I'm not really a big fan of what they did in free agency. Again, they didn't really sign a ton of guys. Devontae Adams, definitely their best acquisition. If he hasn't gone down a step, I'm not sure. It was hit or miss in New York the last 2 years. So it is what it is. Losses, though, I think kind of like the Titans. They lost more than they gained. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp to the Seahawks. Wide receiver Demarcus Robinson to the 49ers. Tight end Hunter Long to the Jags. Offensive tackle Joe Noteboom to the Ravens. Guard Jonah Jackson traded to the Bears. Defensive tackle Neville Gallimore to the Colts. Defensive tackle Bobby Brown III to the Panthers. Edge rusher Michael Hoyt to the Bills. And linebacker Christian Roseboom to the Panthers as well. I thought the Roseboom one was big. I really like him. Happy he's on the Panthers. And, of course, the offensive line losses. Noteboom and Jackson, I thought were kind of big deals. Obviously, the leadership of Cooper Kupp in the wide receiver room. Tutu Atwell is now slated to slide into that third wide receiver spot with Adams and Nakua. But again, when you look at this roster, I think it's competitive for sure. Came out of the draft for me in the Rams. No corners. Big time issues at corner. Now they have Darius Williams, Akello Witherspoon. Kobe Durant is a 2022 fourth rounder. Darian Kendrick, a 2022 sixth rounder. Love my Georgia guy. They did sign former first round pick Emmanuel Forbes from Washington. But I'm not confident in this corner group. That's why the Jalen Ramsey trade rumors have still been swirling from Miami back to LA. I think it would be very fruitful for the Rams to do that because corner was my number 2 need for them, and they did not do it in the draft. So I think that was a big misstep for Les Snead's squad. Safety as well. Safety's kind of the same thing. There's no depth behind Cam Curl and Cam Kitchens. Jalen McCullough and Tanner Engel, Malik Dixon-Williams and Nate Valcarcel. I have no clue who those guys are. I've heard of Jalen McCullough and Tanner Engel a little bit, but very unproven safety room behind the 2 starters. Quentin Lake is listed as a nickel. He is also a safety. But I'm not confident at all in that safety group. Secondary, I think, is going to be a very big issue for LA this year. Interior O-line was another need I had. They did get Coleman Shelton, but the trading of Jonah Jackson, and Coleman Shelton's actually, I have him listed as guard. He's listed on our lads as their starting center. I think they should be a competition, though. Bo Limmer's a decent player, 24 sixth rounder. Dylan McMahon also, he was a 6th round pick of the Eagles last year. So I think there should be an open competition for the starting center position. I'm not the biggest fan of the interior depth, though. KT Leviston, 24 seventh rounder. What I did really like, Willie Lampkin, big time signing, North Carolina. Thought he was going to get drafted. He had a great Senior Bowl. Short arms though. He's short. He's 5'10", very short offensive lineman, but pretty good one. The interior depth is questionable, I think, and then of course offensive tackle depth. AJ Arcuri, 22 7th. Warren McClendon, a 23 5th. Thought they could have brought in some competition. They really didn't. And quarterback, obviously, they did not look at drafting a successor to Matthew Stafford yet, re-signing Jimmy Garoppolo. They still have Stetson Bennett, 23 4th rounder. So we'll see what happens there. And the draft for the Rams, they didn't have a ton of picks. No first rounder. They traded back with the Falcons out of the first round to acquire a first round pick next year. Tight end Terrence Ferguson was their first pick. I thought it was very questionable. I did not have tight end on my bingo card for the Rams, so didn't like that pick at all for the Rams in their first pick, number 46 overall out of Oregon. Third rounder, edge rusher Josiah Stewart, Michigan, number 90. I liked that one. That was one of my top 6 needs for them. It was 6th. Fourth round, running back Darquez Hunter out of Auburn, number 117. I did not have that one on my list either, but I do really like the player. I watched him at the Senior Bowl, pretty good pass blocker, and decent route runner as well. Hard runner, for sure. Fifth rounder, 2 picks, defense tackle Ty Hamilton out of Ohio State, number 148, and linebacker Pooh Paul Jr. at Ole Miss, number 172. Linebacker was my number 1 need for LA, so I didn't like that they waited. I thought Carson Schlesinger in the second round potentially could have been a play, but there were a ton of other linebackers up earlier that they should have went after, I thought. And Ty Hamilton, interior D-line, was my 5th need, so I like that they addressed that. And no 6th rounder, 7th rounder, wide receiver Kanata Mumpfield out of Pitt, 242nd overall. Wide receiver was my 3rd need, so again, didn't like that they waited so long to address it. So really, I only liked Darquez Hunter was the only player I really truly liked out of this draft class. So for LA, I'm gonna go with a C. I think they addressed some needs for me, but I think it was a vast disservice to this roster to not go after any secondary. I think it's going to be a big issue, and I think they're going to end up being a bottom half, bottom third pass defense because of it. Whether they can get to the quarterback in time, sure, but sometimes you can't get there that quickly, and you need the secondary players to be able to hold up in coverage to get coverage sacks. So C for me for the LA Rams draft. And the schedule here, the Rams have mid-pack strength of schedule, 17th hardest strength of schedule there. So versus the Texans week 1, at the Titans, at the Eagles, versus the Colts, versus the 49ers, Thursday Night Football, at the Ravens, at the Jags in London, bye week after that, versus the Saints, at the 49ers, versus the Seahawks, versus the Bucks on Sunday Night Football. They go to Carolina, to Arizona, host the Lions, at the Seahawks Thursday night, at the Falcons Monday night, and then home against the Cardinals week 18. I think it's a very doable schedule. I think the Rams get back to the playoffs with what this schedule holds. I'm not sure they're going to beat any of the top teams, though, in Philadelphia. I think they might split with the 49ers. The Seahawks are a big wild card. I'm not really sure. Them and the Cardinals, I think, could be tricky in this division. The Saints, the Titans games, the Colts, I think they can beat. The Jags, they should be able to beat. The Panthers and the Falcons, I think they can beat all those teams. The Bucks are going to be a tough one, but that's in LA, so it gives them a little bit more of an advantage there, having Tampa travel all the way across the country. But yeah, the Lions and the Eagles, the Ravens, those are the big three games that I'm not sure this team is able to beat. Obviously, they lost to the Eagles in the divisional round. They have played the Lions in the playoffs recently. So yeah, and the Ravens are always tough out, especially in Baltimore. It's a long trip for LA. And they have to do that twice, going to Philadelphia and to the Ravens in a 4-week span. So luckily they'll be rested though. They play San Fran before that on Thursday night, so they'll be well rested there for that. And that is the show for today. Not seeing any other news nuggets. So next Friday we'll be back UFL Week 9. Second to last week of the regular season. We'll get you all your UFL game previews. Giants and Chiefs off-season recap. On Monday, we're doing the Jags and the Texans. So make sure if you're an AFC South fan, watch that one. Come back next Friday for the Giants and the Chiefs off-season recaps. Don't forget to follow us on all social media at FAA Podcast, Instagram and X, FAA_bets on X as well. FAApodcast.com is a website. Check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and TikTok at FAA.podcast. And we will see y'all back on Monday.